Hi there, Daniel Meyer for the communications class to children and family for section 1.4, talking about my communication style, but more importantly, how I teach and present. I have the opportunity to present and teach in a few different venues here at my church here at Christ Memorial here in St. Louis. But I would say what starts for me when it comes to teaching is just a little bit of my background. I grew up kind of shy, introverted, didn't have, I would say, an abundance of friends growing up. And so I won't know if I've always been the most comfortable individual. And one of the best things that I did after being involved in youth group, being involved in leadership roles that my youth leaders did growing up, which were very helpful, I ended up senior year. I knew I wanted to be a youth leader, and I thought I need to become more comfortable talking and speaking in front of groups. That's not something that I was really looking forward to, and so I wanted to make sure that I could kind of put myself in a better position to get myself more comfortable. And so at my public high school that I went to, senior year, I took a speech, and debate class. My teacher in there, I won't forget, Mrs. Amon was her name. She did a wonderful job. It's a smaller class of about 12 students. And so she said, if you can't get comfortable in this class over this semester as we get to know each other, it's a small class, there's only like 12 of us in here, you need to learn how to be comfortable and give presentations, do debate stuff. And so we did all kinds of exercises to help get to know each other better, as well as learn then the techniques of preparing and prepping a speech. She was a big advocate on not typing out or writing out word for word what you were going to present on. She much more preferred you would take like a note card or just have a few bullet points of what you're going to talk about. She always said you need to memorize the first sentence and the last sentence of what you're going to talk about. It'd be interesting to have her review what my abilities are when it comes to presenting and communicating at this point. But so hence there's this video, and I think this is a great exercise for me to participate in. So from there, I did a speech class also freshman year of college, and I did pretty well in there, but I thought maybe didn't do as well as I thought I might do in there. And so anyways, I've continued on through the years. Some of the main ways that I teach and prepare in here is I do things like children's messages. And so, for example, a children's message is typically 3 to 5 minutes, probably at most. Have kids come up. I'm looking at kids probably 2 years of age to about second grade. And so a lot of times in there, what I do to prepare is, and I would say maybe a general theme for what I look to do in my preparation is be knowledgeable on my subject matter, but and have things structured out somewhat, but I don't like to rigidly kind of figure out what I'm going to say or do. And so I kind of try to follow that bullet point kind of method in mind. And so a lot of times for my preparation, I'm going to look at what the scripture text is for the weekend. We might be in a series at our church. But from there, I'm going to then try to think of an idea or a concept to make it simple and connect with children. And so I typically, if I can, I usually almost always have some kind of object with me in that setting to kind of draw their attention. And so from the start, I try to come in with, I think, a decent amount of energy. I think with a children's message, I can get really away with my personality, which is having fun and trying to joke around. And so I try to do my best to connect to children with that, and then make the theme. And so we might be talking about the Lord's Prayer or something like that. And so I'm going to take something like that and boil that down to talking to God. And so I'm going to make that real simple. Or I might try to then connect how how maybe I do things when it comes to maybe my prayer life. And so I'll typically, sometime during the week, I might take 5-10 minutes and just, if 10 minutes, take a note card and just write down the few bullet points that I'm going to talk about. And then I typically, unless it's something that I have to have a bunch of details, I just go up and do it. I might have that note card with me. I may forget it on my desk, but I go up and do that. Interestingly enough, I sometimes give announcements or do other things in the worship service, and I've had some people say there's a big difference between when you do that and when you do a children's message. When I do something like messages, of announcements, occasionally I'll give a kind of a shorter, more of like a devotional type thing, kind of like a mini baby sermon type thing with some of our Advent and Lent family services. And when I do things like that, I try to, when I'm talking to the whole congregation and I'm trying to talk through things maybe a little bit more theological or a little more biblical, I'm still going to take that format that I do before with maybe the note card or whatever, but I'm going to be a little bit more focused, a little bit more serious with that. And so again, I'm going to take the scripture text or that theme or idea and try to make that applicable and apply that to the different ages represented. And again, in that setting, I'm going to have probably youth, a lot of children, a lot of younger families, and try to connect that and try to keep that somewhat simple and condensed. But I know once you kind of unleash things with me with more time and stuff, I end up having probably more ideas and thoughts. And so sometimes trying to streamline that can be a challenge. I have not been to seminary, and so something that I would, and long story short, haven't had like a homiletics class or something like that. And so sometimes with more spiritual topics and things, I would like some more training and ability to learn how to grow in that area and organizing those things into that, maybe that 10-minute message or that 15-minute message, whatever that might be. I don't typically do that often. But it's something that when that opportunity does arise, I would like to be able to better do that. Some other examples of things that I do and how I prepare when I lead in here, maybe on a youth group on a Wednesday night or on a Sunday morning. I'll admit I'm kind of a little bit in autopilot on some things. There's not a whole lot new under the sun for me per se when it comes to topics. And so again, I'm going to go through, I might be taking a resource that's already been prepared, and I'm going to take those bullet points that maybe they uplift, and then I'm going to make that my own. And so I'm not a big over-preparer. I'm not a perfectionist, but I'm one who likes to think about the subject matter throughout the week. And so I don't want to give the impression that, oh, Daniel just takes 5 minutes with a note card and doesn't really prepare. No, I mentally probably spend more of my time preparing, organizing my thoughts. Do I want to share this story? Do I want to share that story? And I think working with children and youth, I'm probably afforded the opportunity to be a little bit more laid back and a little bit more casual in my preparation. When I'm leading the youth, we have some interaction. It's not as formal as a presentation, and so I usually know what my time constraint is for the morning. I maybe been breaking them into groups or having them talk about something with a friend, and that allows, I think, some give and take in the preparing, and so it's different. I've had the opportunity to prepare. For example, I just spoke at our high school district gathering the weekend before Christmas for our the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. We're broken into districts, and so I spoke at the high school gathering on the last morning. I talked about how we were loved and sent, and so it's something our church is about. And what I did is I then did a more formal preparation for that. My pastor has wrote a book on those two words, and he has it really made it really our vision here at our church, talking about how we're loved by Christ and we're sent into the world. And so long story short with that is I took a couple messages that he's given when he's promoted his book and talked about this topic at some conferences, walked through what he talked about, and then I walked through then and prepared, okay, how do I take these students, especially on a Sunday morning? I had about 45 minutes to present. I was at this camp. We were in this indoor kind of basically church worship center kind of space that they had, auditorium style with kind of church pews. And so I would have preferred it been more an interactive space to work with, where they're not so much in pews, where they could maybe turn into a circle and talk in groups. But what I did for that is I took the time to then, make a more formal presentation. I knew that this was not just laid back youth group with maybe 10 or 20 of my kids. I knew that there was going to be other youth leaders, other people that are peers of mine, as well as other people that I look up to. I also knew that I would be representing our district in that setting, and so I wanted to make sure I didn't say or do anything that was a little bit more cavalier and off the cuff that I might do in, like I said, my youth group style. And so what I did then is I really prepared out more fully. Again, I didn't write it out word for word, but I really walked through looking at my pastor's content, and then kind of, I don't want to say adapted and made that my own, but what I did is I took, how do I take this loved and sent concept and then, apply this to high school students? And so I really tried to put myself in their shoes as best I could, being 37 years old, kind of almost 20-year difference, but tried to take, okay, what do I know from high school that's still similar? So then I went through kind of a couple stories, really tried to capture them with story. Then from there, had a few points that then I made. I had then my scriptural connections. Tried to have a couple interactive things where they talked to a friend, but then really finished up. I had this interactive thing where they had to think through. I handed out these bookmarks where then they had to write down who do they think they're sent to, whether that's in their school or in their sports teams and those types of things. And so I went through that process. I then had a typed out, definitely not just a note card for this, I had a more typed out summary of the points that I want to make. And so instead of just bullet points, I had maybe bullet points or phrases or sentences that I wanted to make. I probably had a few that I had highlighted. And so when I presented, I had that sheet of paper with me. But that's something that I prepared. I went into our sanctuary before going down there. I kind of practiced through a couple times, as well as that mental thing that I talked about. Going through and talking about, okay, what do I want to make sure I include? Also for time's sake, I wanted to kind of manage, okay, what kind of time do I think I have for this? I wasn't, set to like 45 minutes or so, but I think I had about an hour for the whole exercise, excuse me. And so I went through and just made sure I was prepared as I could be. Part of just not being a perfectionist and having everything word for word too, I like to leave a little bit of room to the Holy Spirit. We're an LCMS Lutheran church, and that's who I am, and so we're not always this most emotional, or hey, we're just going to go on this tangent, or as the Spirit leads kind of phrase that I know other people's are sometimes about, and that's kind of their method. But I do like to leave a little bit of room just to see how the audience is interacting as well, especially in that longer time frame. You've got more time to read that, as well as just making sure that then I was prepared and able to do a job really to connect with students, especially when it's the last day of a 3-day retreat and they're tired, and really try to engage. I would say also what I maybe sometimes lack in preparation, I really try to focus on engagement. The last thing I really want to avoid, this kind of thing, especially with students. I see that all too often, and a lot of times with church and ministry settings, kids are tired, they've had a long week or whatever. I try to do my best to try to engage them and try to have those one or two things or that story or something that they can at least, maybe they had that conversation, God willing, with their parent on the way home, that there's that one or two things that they're able to latch on to. So from there, I see, just those different things that I do to prepare. I probably don't have the most formalized process. I think there's definitely some room for growth in presenting in those more, I'd call them serious settings that I have, to really clarify and articulate exactly the essence of what I want to talk about. And so I think there's some room for that at times. And I think sometimes, as you can probably see in this video, I can kind of ramble on. And so talking and having things to say is something that I definitely don't struggle with. And so it's very easy to kind of continue on with information or that kind of thing. And part of that, though, is kind of that laid-back youth group style that I think sometimes I exhibit a little too much, but then sometimes it's just maybe that lack of preparation on my part to be more effective in clarifying, okay, this is what I'm talking about today, to try to hit those points home. I would say I'm a believer of kind of, I don't know if this is anybody else's philosophy, but I don't want to infringe on some copyright or something, but my philosophy is I've done it all, in the sense of I've prepared a children's message for several hours, when I was just starting in ministry and really making sure I would do the best job. And I've also kind of winged stuff just because I haven't had a lot of time or whatever that reason is for a week, or maybe I've been put on the spot for a situation. And I think I've had varying results. I think I've had some stuff that hasn't gone as well. I've had some stuff go really well. And so I don't know. I think I could be led to believe something, but I don't know if I'm a believer in this is the one way that I find success in preparing a message. And if I follow this rubric or this structure, I'm going to guarantee success. Because I think I've put a lot of time into preparing lessons for youth group and different things over the years. And I think some of them have connected and some haven't. And then other times, stuff that, I've made up the night before or even the morning before because something's come up. And again, that's not usually my usual order in doing things. Those have gone well, and sometimes those have not gone well. So that's the process that I've gone through. I hope this is what you guys were looking for in this video. And if not, please let me know, and then I can correct and modify from there. But looking forward to this experience to learn and grow as a leader and better develop my ability to connect and communicate with youth, children, families, adults, whatever opportunities the Lord puts before me. So thank you.